Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Albany 40 Under 40 event this evening. We'll be honoring 40 rising stars in Albany. So thank you all for joining us this virtual event and panel that we're hosting tonight. Before we get started, I just want to explain a couple of ground rules with Zoom. If you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A. That is the best way to make sure that we can see them on our end. And if time permitting, we might go to some audience questions. As I said, if there's some time. And when you use the chat function, please be sure to address it to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see it if you're interested in having a discussion in the chat. Otherwise, it might just go to the panelists and other people won't be able to see what you say. So please make sure that you send it to all panelists and attendees. So, we're going to get started. This was obviously a momentous year. A lot of stuff happened this past year. And Albany's been changing quite a lot the past couple years. And a lot of new lawmakers, a lot of new bills passing, a lot of big changes have been happening in Albany, including some of our honorees tonight who are part of new classes of lawmakers coming in and changing Albany. So I'd like to get right into the panel that we have put together this evening. We're joined tonight by Senator Jamaal Bailey from the 36th District, who will be joining us shortly. Senator Michelle Hinchey from the 46th District, who is one of our honorees tonight, David Lombardo, the host of the Capitol Pressroom on WCNY, and Senator Samra Brouk from the 55th District, who is also one of our honorees tonight. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Just to start out, I guess if I would like to give you each maybe an opportunity just to, speak a little bit about yourself, and if there's anyone you want to shout out from the list, any friends, family, colleagues that you want to shout out before we get started. I'll let you go ahead for anyone who wants to jump in, and if not, we can jump right into the questions.
I would like to reserve my time for later in the evening.
As fair enough. Senator Hinchey, Senator Brouk, anything you want to say briefly about yourself before we get started, or any shout outs you want to make?
Well, I just did a quick scroll and I saw my mom, so I have to shout her out because she's watching. But also, I am honored to be on this list with my other Rochester Senator, Jeremy Cooney, too. So it's great to be here and be repping the whole city of Rochester.
And I would add, it's really an honor to be on the list. I think I probably speak for maybe both of us, Senator Brouk and all of the freshmen who were on, Senator Cooney, because to be on, 6 months in is a really exciting thing. We've had a really busy first session, and we have so many great friends on this list too. Of course, our friends in labor and others. And so it's great to be in such incredible and esteemed company. And it's great to be here tonight on this panel.
Let's just kind of get right into that. On that note about, this was, as I said, you've been here for 6 months. A lot has happened in that 6 months. I guess so far, what has been your impression of Albany, and what do you feel like your biggest accomplishments have been, this first session for you two? Senator Hinchey, you've unmuted, so you volunteered.
Sure. Dead air makes me nervous, as I have a mom who was in radio, and so I always try to give the space and then have to jump in for fear of time. It's been great. I think challenging year to start any new job, right? But especially to join the legislature. A lot of this work is building relationships, and to not be able to all be in the same space all the time, to build those relationships, to build those connections is definitely a challenge. But I think we did really well anyway. Albany is part of my Senate district, and we made a point to be there and to kind of meet everybody we could, and to take the time and seek people out to be able to be as productive as possible, because it's always important to be involved in public service, but arguably it's never been more important coming out of this pandemic, and one of the darkest times our state, our country, and our world has ever faced. And so to be able to work together to do that, and to hopefully direct our communities into a better path, take the learnings from this pandemic and to direct our communities onto a better path is exciting. For me, I'll say there, and I'm sure we all have this experience, but there are tangible things that I know that if we weren't sitting in this seat wouldn't have happened this session, that I'm really, really proud of. From things like securing funding for the Catskills Park. The Catskills have never had their own budget line. We, for the first time, were able to do that, both getting equal billing with the Adirondacks and one of the overusage lines, as well as a separate stewardship line for the Catskills, is really exciting and really important to me. And expanding rural healthcare equity, from the air ambulance bill, making sure that paramedics can carry, transport, and distribute blood, transfuse blood, critical. Making sure that we have other healthcare equities across upstate New York, and just really being a strong voice with my colleagues from Rochester up for upstate and kind of the broader state in general has been a really great experience for me.
And Senator Brouk, what was your first session like, especially, part of this new Rochester contingent, and, part of a growing group of upstate progressive lawmakers, which, a couple years ago, you wouldn't really see.
It's so true. And I do, I shouted out my other fellow senator in Rochester, but the truth is we have a fantastic delegation, Democratic delegation all around. And I do take that really seriously, not just all of us new senators, but I think a lot of us who joined public service in the past few years are coming at it with this attitude of, time is up. We need to create this change. A lot of us think about, settling in with our own families and what the future is going to look like. And we've been watching, right, from the sidelines in our other positions before being in public service, and watching what we wanted to change and what needed to move more quickly. And I think it's amazing. One of the ways I've heard us described the new group of senators is that, you really got to harness our power, and everyone talks about harnessing that energy. And it's a very, very polite, respectful way of saying we're really coming firing on all cylinders. We didn't come to keep a seat warm. We didn't come to be comfortable. We came here to affect change. And I really am proud of the whole conference and the whole Senate, but really the folks that I jumped into this seat with, my colleagues. It's been really amazing to learn alongside them. Before we started today, we were all joking that there was all this shorthand that I didn't know, because I'm not an Albany insider, right? The only time I visited Albany before being in the seat was to visit family, or to drive to college, which was in Massachusetts, and we went through Albany. But so there was a lot to learn, right? There were multiple times that I may have gotten lost in the Capitol trying to get where I was going. Now I have the third floor down pat, and I can do anything on the third floor. But when we get back in person, I might have to relearn some things. But that made it really difficult. Everything was virtual. Some of it we did from Rochester, some of it we did from Albany. But I think that the one thing it did do is it made you laser focused on what you were doing. I think we all knew we could not come back home to this community that many of us, we were building grassroots movements where there was never a Democratic senator, or hadn't been one for decades. And so we did a lot of work to get in this position, and we knew that people would be watching. People were waiting to see, how are you different? What are you going to deliver? And I think we all took that really, really seriously. And so when you heard Senator Hinchey talk about things that were just never considered, And she was able to champion those things and gain the respect in a really short amount of time. And I was in those Zoom meetings listening to her speak her piece and share stories that a lot of people in our conference had never heard of from that part of the state. Similarly with Rochester, I had a partner that we could sit there and kind of collaborate and contribute together to get folks to understand the importance of investing in Western New York and investing in the Finger Lakes. And there are things that were decades in the making that only got done because there were enough of us in the room now that believed they should get done. For me, one of those is about education. Everybody told me, don't go too big, just, get your bearings, slide in, just learn about the job before you jump in too much. Don't expect too much. Well, I expected a lot, and I think we worked really hard to achieve that. And we can come back to, especially the city of Rochester now, and say, we're going to fully fund foundation aid. I have teens who are in high school here who were advocating for years about this and telling heartbreaking stories about how they felt they didn't matter. And now some of them are actually interning in our office, and they were there when they heard this news. And just imagine being a 16-year-old, seeing the power of your voice. I mean, these are the things that we get to do when there's this many people who care about these issues that are affecting our communities. The other thing I was really proud of was the work we did in mental health and mental health crisis. I represent a city where Daniel Prude lost his life and was killed last year. And we know there's a lot of work to do. And one of the major steps was introducing Daniel's Law, getting a public hearing on Daniel's Law, and also passing our 988 bill, which actually will start creating this infrastructure for people to have a place to call. So those are two things that, when, like Senator Hinchey said, when you look back, like you want to have that tangible thing that you can bring back and say, we're moving the needle. And then we've laid really great groundwork to be in person next year and finish out this first term and hopefully do even more.
Well, certainly a lot there that I hope we'll get a chance to get into. And welcome, Senator Bailey. We'll get to you, in a moment. Like the background, repping the chamber. Always like to see that. But I want to ask, as the only non-lawmaker as part of this panel, Dave Lombardo, for you as as a reporter who has been in Albany, who's covering this past year, this different year, a lot of stuff happened. You've covered a lot of sessions. How did this year kind of compare from an outside perspective, as someone covering it, not someone making the news?
Yeah, there's really nothing to compare this year to. Just from the logistical standpoint, obviously, I mean, it's been a ghost town in the capital, and one of the best parts of this job, no matter whether I've been here at the Times Union or at State Watch or working in the Assembly or working at the Daily Gazette or 8 million other jobs I've had, is the fact that you get to be around so many people at the Capitol and, bump into people and have those conversations. And as a reporter, there's nothing better than just, meeting a source somewhere out in a hallway and getting to chat and learn something. Nice thing this year, though, was that the Assembly Democrats were kind enough to all text us from conference. So that was really great. Senate Democrats, for some reason, didn't get that memo. You guys plugged all the leaks or something. You're a lot better, more regimented, congrats. But so that personal thing was really tough. But then the rest of the mechanics all seemed to happen. Everything just got moved to Zoom. We still had budget hearings, although we then couldn't surprise Howard Zucker outside of hearing room B because he now could just escape virtually. So that made things a little tougher. But, like I said, the actual job of covering the Capitol was still there, and we just adapted. And I just miss seeing everyone and miss being able to, knock threes down in Senator Bailey's face, because that's how I live.
It's lovely. It's a lovely sentiment. We all miss you. I'm sure everyone misses you as well up in Albany. And Senator Bailey was just mentioned, so I'm going to throw it to you now. This past year, a lot has happened. A lot of big legislation passed. Historically large budget. Legalizing marijuana, repealing the walking while trans. Like so much stuff happened this past year. you've been in the Senate, we're joined by your two freshman colleagues. It's their first time, the first go around for you. What is this year been like? This is not your first go around, but it seemed it was a pretty big year.
Well, absolutely. One, as far as David knocking threes down in my face, let's talk about that. I missed that Tuesday night basketball. David forgets that when I hezzy cross tween him into the stands of our the capacity crowd of 3 people watching us. But in all seriousness, it's things like that I miss, the in-person camaraderie. David speaks of those basketball games, which we would play Tuesday nights. And for an hour and change, we would forget about the hustle and bustle of the Capitol, and we would just release by playing basketball. And it was something that was important. Being able to see people was critical. I remember for the first time meeting Senators Hinchey and Brouk. And for me, it was incredibly exciting because to that point, I had only met them via Zoom. People that I work well with, people that are working incredibly hard and fighting for their communities, trailblazing women who have opened up seats in our favor of the Democrats for the first time in so many years. I didn't get a chance to sit next to them in conference. I had to conference with them via Zoom. So that was an experience as far as the newness of it goes. It was unlike any other year that I faced as an individual and as a legislator, but I think it made us all better legislators. It made us really realize that all we have is each other. All we have is that confidence in each other and that ability that we have to have a camaraderie in order for us to be able to pass that, pass any piece of legislation. It's critical. So I want to give credit to our leadership for being able to make sure that we were bound together even tighter during a year where arguably you would say that it would be harder to keep folks together in such a time. So I'm just excited that we're going to be getting back to normal. We're going to be able to see people in person sooner rather than later. I'm sad that I won't be able to have cool virtual backgrounds and turn my screen off when it's convenient or mute my Zoom when my kids are yelling. But in all seriousness, it's been incredible. And I'm sorry I'm late. As David Lombardo would have it, I was having trouble using my internet to use an AOL 4.0 CD because I'm a MINO, millennial and name only, according to David Lombardo. So.
Well, there's technically nothing stopping you from just walking around with a cardboard cutout background if the mood so hit you. So you could just take the digital, make it analog, put tape over your mouth. I don't know, something. There are options. You can just translate it into the analog world. But I do want to ask about that. We're here honoring some rising stars. We're talking about mentorships, people who have helped bring people to where they are today. And something that I've heard from a lot of people that was really missing this session was, as you said, the meeting in person, seeing people, and especially for the freshman lawmakers to be able to kind of talk to the more senior lawmakers, have a sense of how session goes. Senator Brouk, as you said, getting a little lost in the Capitol. Maybe you didn't have someone there quite to guide you or tell you all the lingo. What was that like in terms of trying to ground, for you freshmen, Senator Hinchey, Senator Brouk, and for you, Senator Bailey, in terms of connecting and helping to try to mentor the new class of freshmen and making sure that they are becoming part of the Albany scene and aren't being kind of left in the dust or left confused about things. And Senator Bailey, you are currently unmuted, so I'll go to you first.
Oh, sure. So one, look, these amazing women really didn't need my help. They've been leading in capacities prior to their election. And I think that's why their community selected them. So as far as the work part of it, I think they were well in tune with what the work entailed. Now, certain things about the process itself, I think that, being back in Albany, I think it'll make it a little bit easier. But I think they and the rest of their amazing freshman colleagues, I think they hit the ground running as far as the work capacity. But again, certain things that like, okay, where are the off-campus events going to be? When the conference room is up, where are you going to sit in conference? Because we have assigned seats. Like for example, I sit next to Senator Prasad. Roxanne doesn't let anybody else sit next to her, y'all. I'm sitting next to Roxy. So, we got to figure that out. But little minute things like that are going to be critical, but they also like enhance the experience. And I can, and I, as the old man on the Zoom, not an old man in the room, I'm always willing to lend a helping hand and to give advice where necessary. But these amazing folks, they don't need my help. I give the unsolicited advice sometimes.
I'd add to that by saying everyone in the conference has been so readily available. We get check-ins from people like Senator Kennedy, Senator Bailey, Senator Mayer, really our entire conference saying, how you doing? Checking in, what do you need? During budget time, saying, are you doing okay? How's your stuff going? How's everything? How's it looking for you? Or do you need any help with anything? It's been real. One of the things that I was actually, I think, kind of surprised by was how accessible and wonderful really our entire conference is. When we speak as freshmen, people listen. When we talk about issues in our communities that haven't been talked about for a long time as these upstate issues, people listen and they want to help. I have a conversation with one of our colleagues, earlier in the year, and then when budget time came, they'd say this project or this thing would help what you were talking about earlier, right? This would be helpful. We can help. Like if I help push for this would help your community. That's amazing, right? The camaraderie that's already there. So to be a new person walking in and to have the support of all of your colleagues right off the bat was really amazing. And so I think, from on a mentorship perspective, everyone really has filled that void or has done that job in a really meaningful way. Again, if they're, kind of who, as you watch, who to call. If we have an education issue, I can easily call Senator Mayer. Anyone can call Senator Mayer and say, my community has this question. Would you mind hopping on a Zoom with us to talk about it? Or what do you think about this language for this, or would this solve this problem? My Albany comrade, Senator Breslin, too, is a great person who has been there shoulder to shoulder with me, helping me through some of the dynamics through Albany County, and educating me on those things and making sure that we can get off on the best foot possible so that we can really come back and deliver our communities. And so the entire experience over the first 6 months has really just been how wonderful and quite frankly, how lucky we are to now work in a conference and be part of a conference that is so supportive and wants to uplift everyone, because when one of us is successful, we are all successful. And so to be able to have that mentality is a really great place to enter into as a freshman.
Yeah, I agree with everything my colleagues say. And I'm just kind of smiling now because I'm realizing thinking about some of the conversations I've had with some of the folks who are in the conference for some of them close to probably almost like 20 years, almost most of my life. But one thing that I think is so interesting is usually when you start a new job and you're the newbie, it's like you've replaced someone else who maybe everyone else had a good relationship with, and you kind of have to step in their shoes. But the interesting thing for a lot of us is that we flipped seats. So we came in, and I'm going to try to use a basketball phrase, and it's just going to totally land flat. So maybe I won't even try. But like you're coming in and you're like already the all-star, like they're waiting, like they needed these positions filled. I don't know. Did I fail? I don't know. Sorry, Bailey. But so, that was the other thing. We're so glad you're here. Like we wanted to strengthen this conference. And so you're new, and also like everyone's excited to have you, right? Which is the one difference than stepping into, most new jobs where they might have loved, the VP before you or whatever at a company. But this was one that I think everyone was just really eager to make sure we were successful. And I do have to shout out, I know Senator Bailey did, but shout out our majority leader, Stuart Cousins as well, because I felt so welcomed and like there was no, there was no line that, we could ask whatever we needed to ask. There were no stupid questions. And I really leaned into that because this is important work. You don't want to guess at this work. You want to get it right, because in some cases you're talking about someone's livelihood or even someone's own health on the line, right, with some of the work that we do. And so I really appreciated that there really was this open door, as it were, open phone or text, since we weren't always there. But that really allowed us to kind of, fail a little bit and get something wrong and be able to get it right as we're trying to figure out, especially process and procedure. I remember the first day I walked into the chamber, I had to ask the staff, what do I say when, and how do I know when it's time to talk? And I've got all my notes, and where does the debate start? I mean, there's these little things that people take for granted that you might just casually go through. But for us, it was so deliberate. It's like you had a certain amount of time you could be in the chamber, and then you had to go, and that's your moment. You know, you don't really have time to practice and to learn the ropes. So that was really, really helpful. And I think it made the whole process just so much easier to jump into. And I also I have to give a shout out, you know, I'm the mental health chair, and being able to work with the health chair, Senator Rivera and Senator Harcum, on alcoholism and substance abuse. So much of our work really was intertwined, and it was really great to jump in and, you know, feel like you had this team to help you think through, you know, what some of those issues were and how best to tackle them. And I can't wait to be there in person, because I can't even imagine how much else we can accomplish and, you know, get to know more about Senator Bailey's kids. Like, we've never seen them. We know they're at camp, but, you know, these personal things to better understand our colleagues too. You miss some of that. And so one of the things we did was, you know, just go down to the there. Now we know there's one of them. Hi. You know, go down to the lounge and just try to, you know, meet colleagues. And there'd be times where I would tell my staff, I'm going down, and I wouldn't be back until like 6 or 7 p.m. Like, I'd be down there for 3 hours, because we want, like, you know, I was in good conversation. I was getting to know my colleagues, and you know, next year it'll be much easier. We won't have to be as, you know, deliberate. I'm going to go down and talk to these 3 people, and we're going to plan to see each other. But I'm looking forward to that. Are we going to get to meet our future presidents here, Senator Bailey?
Do we get a shout out?
This is
Cameos?
Karina. Want to say hi? She doesn't want to say hi. She's tired. She's tuckered out, as they would say, as an old man like me would say, right there, from camp today. So, you know, and my oldest was on earlier GI. You know, that's why I was actually late, because I had to pick them up from camp. So.
Well, you know, as Senator Brouk said, she's certainly looking forward to, you know, seeing them on Zoom is not quite the same as seeing in person. You know, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to getting back to in person and seeing each other. But David, I want to ask you now. You know, we've heard about, you know, kind of coming up in the legislature and you know, mentorships happening there and really getting your footing. But and you know, I can speak from experience that, you know, getting started in you know, the covering of the legislature is it could be kind of tough, you know. So what was that like for you, and what would you say that you do now? Like, do you feel that you are a mentor to up and coming young reporters who are looking to crack into the ever interesting world of New York State politics?
I definitely try to be. The experience I had at the Times Union, working in a bureau, I got a Hearst Fellow was brought in, someone who never covered the Capitol. They were a young whippersnapper right out of college. Her name's Kayla Harris. And working with her really, it invigorated me, but I also really cherished the chance to work with someone who was such raw potential, and someone who's going to be going much further than I ever will. And to work with her and to, you know, help steer her, help, you know, channel her energies, help be a sounding board. And that was great. And now, you know, I don't necessarily have that same thing, but sitting in the Capitol around so many other reporters. I mean, Rebecca, you know what this press room's like. I'm right in the heart of things. I can overhear everybody's conversations. So, I mean, I'm chiming in with unsolicited things half the time, and that's not always helpful, but definitely, you know, trying to walk through, you know, LRS with new reporters, let them know, you know, you're working on a code story. Well, Jim Skoufis a couple of years ago did an investigation into the codes through all this nonsense. So, you know, you're going to want to talk to him. And I part of it is because I want to help young people, but also I just want the best journalism out of the Capitol. So I want, you know, everyone else to succeed, because, you know, I guess their, you know, success doesn't hurt me. for the most part. I mean, there's some way in which, unless they're gunning for my job, in which case, eventually someone's going to take it. But their success is just good for everybody. So that's kind of how I view that.
I want to, kind of throw it out there to, I'll start with you again, David, just to kind of go around again. But I'm kind of, I want to hear about, I guess, who, each of your kind of mentors were, and, what your experiences were like when, I guess for some of our freshmen, maybe it's more recent. Maybe it does go further back to before you decided to run for office, but, what those experiences were like, and how you feel like you might that have either influenced you now as a mentor, or how you feel like you might be able to pass that on to the next class of 40 under 40 rising stars. So I want to start again with you, David. You're on the hot seat.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear what Nelson Rockefeller was like when Jamaal Bailey gets his chance to talk. But I would have to say that Assemblyman Santa Barbara, who I had a whirlwind 15 months of working for, was someone who really shaped me at a pivotal time in my life. I'd just gone through a couple different jobs, and I came in at this at 27 years old. I know how to do everything. I was more of an asshole than I am now, much more muted now. And I just thought I could do everything. I thought I knew everything. And he was really good about recognizing what I did know and letting me run wild with the things that I knew, which were how to get media attention. And where I didn't know things, he was really good about, calling me out on my bullshit, and was teaching me not only how to do that job, but how to be, I'm going to sound sentimental, an adult. I mean, I'm going to be a man. And I really thank him for that. And, that was really important, because I was definitely not thinking about the whole big picture a lot of the times, or, what the other moving parts in an equation were. So he really helped me open my eyes and take a more holistic look at things. So now I'm going to leave it at that before I start crying.
Well, you are always, in my experience, a wealth of information, and good for helping others and young reporters like myself seeing a more holistic picture. So it seems like perhaps he has kind of rubbed off on you, and you're now becoming yourself, helping out the next generation of people. But Senator Brouk, for you, and I know that Rochester Monroe politics can be a little bit wonky. So I'm kind of curious about who your mentors were, and what your kind of political upbringing kind of was.
That's a whole nother show, Rochester politics. And I don't know how long that would take. But for me, my story is a little different than some, but maybe similar to others, that I didn't really necessarily have political mentors. Anyone who followed me starting in 2019 knows that I politically came out of nowhere. And to the surprise of all, and really forged a path that had not been paved, and was not easy, but we had the conviction that we knew we were doing what we thought was best for the community, and we talked to community member one at a time, call after call, door after door, and you eventually get the 90-something thousand people that vote for you, right? And of course, it was much more complicated than that, but all that to say, any mentorship that I had in my career came from, working in nonprofits, or, the different groups that I was a part of. And I apologize, there is construction happening in the background if you hear that. But, I think one thing I want to share, because one of the big things for me in mentoring folks who are coming up behind me, is really making sure that people can see themselves in the places that they're going. And anytime I speak anywhere, I make it very clear, if there is a young woman, if there's a young woman of color who thinks that this isn't the thing for her, or isn't sure, I will always give you a minimum 30-minute phone call, right? Like, it's so hard to make that ask. So I just like to be very clear. It is never a waste of time. It is not too big of an ask. You can always reach out, and I'll leave my email address in the the chat. But truly, I think we have to offer that up because not everyone has that connection. Not everyone knows where to go. And so for me, not having, that one person to look up to in a position, to be honest, other than Stacey Abrams, who is the reason I'm here, because listening to her for the first time in August 2018 changed everything. I did more than choke up, David. I actually cried in a public room because I had never seen someone who reflected my life story so much and was doing such incredible things. And that was the first time I thought I could really do it. Of course, we're not necessarily texting all the time where she can give me ideas and, maybe someday. But instead, you really have to find pieces to take from everyone you interact with, right? Like every supervisor you've ever had, every colleague you've admired, every person doing things that inspire you. And I try to take a piece of whatever the best part of that person is, or something they did, or something I could learn, and use that. And so that's how I got here. Was I learned things from all sorts of people, sometimes people who work for you, right? That you supervise, because they're just, sometimes it's just not as easy, right? To have that one person, or maybe you don't know your path yet. And so, so that's a, fantastic way for some of us who have more, meandering paths to where we're going and don't always know where we're going to end up, but we know what we want to do or the impact we want to have. And so, so that was really, really helpful for me. And I so believe in creating a bench that is progressive and multicultural and multi-ethnic and full of new Americans and women and people of color and Indigenous people and differently able people and LGBTQ. Like, we need that group of people, and we only get them if the ones in the positions now do the work to make our work seem accessible, to be more transparent, and to let them know how we got here. So, so that's something I try to do, and hopefully more people will take me up on that offer, so we can have more Senator Brouks and Senator Hincheys and Senator Baileys out there as our future colleagues and in government.
No, that all sounds fantastic, and it's something that sometimes people don't want to admit that they learn from their own staff, their own employees, but no, it's if you're not learning from the people who work from you, you're probably doing something wrong. But Senator Hinchey, now I'd like to ask you, because I imagine that your background is a little bit different in that you do come from like a politics family. How did that kind of shape you, and was that one of the more important parts of your decision, to kind of do what you're doing now, or did you come about it through different ways and with different mentors?
Yeah, well, and so my father was in office for really my whole life. He started off in the assembly, and then he went to Congress. But before that, he was a toll booth worker, right? Like, we don't have a long lineage of being a political family, kind of, right? I mean, I learned from what I think is one of the best, but my father didn't have shoes in the summer, right? Had a big family, was the first person to go to college, worked his way through college as a toll booth worker. And that's what, I never had Easy Pass until the state forced me to have it, because those are great union jobs for people. And they literally pried the cash from my hand and forced the Easy Pass in instead. But that's where I grew up. And so the way that my father learned politics and public service was literally watching his father help unionize the cement plant that he worked at in the 50s. And so it was with that mentality and that mindset that my father entered public service, and in which the way that I learned it as well. And, so the way that we would spend time together in the districts as large as ours are in upstate New York, both at a state level and especially federally, you don't have a lot of time. That time is not your own. That time is to the people that elected you. And therefore, you show up, you travel on the weekends, you spend that time away from your family to go make sure that you're meeting with people where they are, to hear their stories, and to take that back with you to figure out how to make their lives a little bit better. And so I would spend that time with him in the car, driving around the district to different communities, to Ithaca, Binghamton, Elmira, Newburgh, and hear from people of all different backgrounds, locations, and hear stories, everything from, thank you, you helped my mom or my brother or my sister be able to stay in their home, to I can't pay my utility bills, or I can't get my veterans benefits. How can you help me? And that really shapes your worldview. At least it did for me. Hearing those things from when I was 6, really my entire life. And at the same time, you do see all of the negatives, the things that many of us now experience, the fact that your time is not your own in many a case, that you are beholden to the people who elected you and who chose you to be their voice in Albany. There is a lot of hardship there, and choices and some sacrifice. And, it was important for me I knew I cared about this work, and I knew that I was passionate about it. I won most argumentative in high school, arguing against the Iraq War, which was not a popular choice at the time. But because I knew that it was within me, but it was really important to see what else was out in the world, and to learn, to see if there was another passion that I had, and not kind of force myself into a space that I thought maybe I should follow. And I agree with everything that Senator Brouk said. You learn from everybody. I've been blessed with people at all jobs that I've had, who have really helped me and inspired me, and seen that we could grow and that I could grow into things, and helped really shape my understanding of the world at large. And though those jobs were wonderful and I learned a ton, at the end of every day, I felt like there was a lot more to do. When you hear those stories growing up and they shape your worldview, we have to do something about that. It's on us to change that, to make it for the better. And I think, I also agree, we need more young people to run for office. This is our future. These are Senator Bailey's kids, right? It's my future kids. It's what is the world that we are going to leave them? And not everybody thinks about getting involved in public service, and that's fine. Everyone has a different path, but if you do think about it and you do feel that call to serve, I kind of feel like it's your responsibility to do that. Because not everyone does. And we can, if we all do that, lean in, work together, we can leave this world a much better place than the one that we have found and that we find ourselves in, which I think is the point of the work that we all do collectively. And so, to be able to have the mentors that I have, and I also agree with Senator Brouk, everybody call me. We do the same thing. There's a woman running in Greene County now, a young woman running in Greene County, who I take many phone calls with. And I actually owe her a phone call now. So, to make sure that we can elevate and support the next generation of women and young people running, because that's the only way that we're going to change the status quo. And one thing that I think is so exciting about our freshman class is I believe there's 7 of us. Most of us are under 40. That's amazing that we have this new class of young people who either, kept districts in our conference or flip them for the first time in a really long time. That's because young people have the energy to show up, right? Young people have the energy to make sure that we are learning all sides of the conversation and that we are pushing forward. And when we hear, this is the way it always works, it doesn't have to work that way. The way it always works is not the way it's working. Clearly it's not working. And so we have to band together to say, what are the other ways that we can do something here? And we have to be able to support and encourage, the people who work for us and the people that we meet out in the world to run themselves and to help us do the work, because we can only do it all together.
And Senator Bailey, as Senator Hinchey said, you've got to have more young people running for office. It's also the natural state of things that you're going to have new generations running for office. You are.
So when are you going to retire?
This is not. We're civil. We're all friends here. David, I understand that you want to get your chance to talk, but we're all trying to be friends here. I'm not going to ask when you're going to retire, Senator. It's not Albany strictly, but you are the chair of the Bronx Democratic Party, who just helped elect in a whole new class of lawmakers in New York City. What was I guess your role in kind of helping to bring that class in, and what did you bring in from your own mentors in this new role where that's a big part of what you kind of do?
Sure. So, to David's earlier point, I would have stopped the Rockefeller drug laws, and it was really hard, David, being the person who called in to report Watergate. It was really difficult for the family. But in all seriousness, I started as an intern when Speaker Hasty was a second-term Assembly member, and I walked into his office as a senior at the University of Albany, and I was very nervous, and I wasn't sure of myself at all. I had never been through a formal internship. I'd worked a number of summer jobs in recreation. And I walked in and I was like, "Hey, Mr. Hasty, hi, I'm Jamaal Bailey. Is there something that I can do? Can I go get you a coffee? Can I go make a copy or something like that?" He said, "Sit down." He said, "One, my name is Carl. Mr. Hasty was my dad. Second, I'm an adult. If I wanted to get coffee, I would get it, but I don't like coffee. I like tea. And the third thing is that you're here to be a part of a legislative internship, and you're here to be in the legislative internship. You're here to learn. You're here to do legislative work. So be prepared and get ready." And he picked me because I was from his district. I had never had the opportunity to meet Carl before that. I was just happy to be with somebody in a community that I've grown up in, and that is near and dear to my heart. And like I care about my neighborhood. That's why I ran for office, and because I care, because Senator Brouk cares, because Senator Hinchey cares, because David cares. That's why he reports on things. Like we all care about where we come from and what we do, right? And so what happened was I was bit by that political bug, and I can recall off the top of my head bill number 89534 of the 2004-2005 legislative session, an act to amend the public health law relating to nicotine laced water. Why does that ring true in my mind? Because I researched that bill as an intern. And then after I researched that bill, it passed and it was signed, and I got a copy of that pen certificate to remind me what the power of government was. So I translate that as a career myself, as a senator and as the chair of the Bronx Democratic County Committee, where we were able to elect a brand new crop of city council members. For the first time in the history of the Bronx, we're going to have a majority of women as who are going to lead our city council delegation. That is no small feat, because it's finally looking to believe in women and believing in their ability to lead. But it's not just because they're women; it's because they were damn good at leading in their community, and they deserve the opportunity to be given the chance to be elected. And so it was one of those things where you're looking at the women that we selected, we're looking at the men that we selected, and they all had something in common, is that they gave a damn, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're looking for a title, titleists, go play golf, go get a golf ball. Don't come in here looking for a title. Look in here looking to do actual work and change the lives of people, because this is hard work, y'all. This is tough work. And it's not just being an elected office, it's being staffers, it's being advocates, it's being reporters, it's being journalists, it's being people who are in this world. You are all public servants as well, and you give of yourselves, especially during budget time, especially during the end of session. Where you're stopped in supermarkets and you're stopped in the communities where you represent, but we do that because we love the work that we do. And so being able to look at the lessons that I was given, not just by the speaker, but by my dad, who taught me that, you're only going to get out of something what you put into it. From my grandfather, James, time is a fortune teller. And at the end of the day, the only thing that you have is your word and your work. These are things that are passed down to me through generations. So at the end of the day, like, it's what we have to do, right? In public service, this is what you're called to do. And in finding people who were committed to that, and not only were committed to doing the work in terms of politics, but translating it into governance, because we have the most challenging budgets ahead of us. We are recovering from COVID. So we needed an amazing city council class, much like our amazing freshman Senate class. And I think that we're well on our way to bringing prosperity back to the borough of the Bronx and back to our state. And I'm excited for what lies ahead.
Now, we do have to wrap up pretty soon, but I want to throw out a final question. Got to keep it relatively short, but just want to throw it out there. What do you either expect or hope to see in the next year of Albany as people kind of come back? And I'll throw it out there for whoever wants to answer first. Whoever unmutes first will have the honors of giving their thoughts and what they hope or expect to see in the next year in Albany. And if no one unmutes, I'll pick someone.
In honor of Senator Hinchey's mom coming from radio, I'm jumping in for this dead air. This is me being only 7 months in, but these are the two things that I am really hoping for. I mean, there's a number of bills, but we won't get into specifics. Two things. One, I do hope that once we are all together, we are able to move even faster with getting some things done that I think have been long overdue. And I think that we are now in a strong position to get them done. And so I hope that once we're able to do that relationship building, be in the same room, go through literal physical pieces of paper and mark things up and really have substantive conversation. Not that we didn't this year, but I think we might be able to move even more quickly to get the people's work done next year. And the second is I hope that, Senator Bailey just talked about how difficult this work is when you're coming out of a global pandemic. We are seeing rising stats of COVID cases with this Delta variant again. I think it's foolish for anyone to think that we are completely out of the woods, and that means the work will continue to be difficult. And I'm really hoping that when we get back to work for next year, we are able to exhibit the courage that's going to be necessary to make really tough decisions, to make sure that we can serve especially the most vulnerable people in New York. And I think we're capable of it. And I think being together will make that even easier, but that's what I'm hoping we can do.
Now, Lombardo, I want to ask you, and keep it civil, keep it nice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you over my mask. So I think that there is virtually no chance that if they're meeting in person, they'll be able to at least work as fast as they did, because there are so many resolutions, proclamations, middle school softball teams, Girl Scout troops that haven't been honored over the last year, that there's going to have to be so many remarks. Wait till you hear your colleague Tim Kennedy speak for like 90 minutes about like Kellogg's or whoever, the Blarney Stone or whatever he's going to do on the floor, because that's going to slow things down to a crawl. So that's what I'm dreading that happening again, but I think it's definitely going to happen because that's just how Albany works. You can't stop that kind of momentum. So that's my prediction for the future.
Thank you for sharing that. I
You're
think
welcome.
that
Was that helpful?
It's helpful, especially for perhaps some of our freshmen who didn't haven't experienced that particular side of Albany yet.
Yeah.
Senator Hinchey, what do you expect or hope to happen? And no copying answers.
We will be able to move fast, David. You just wait and see. Even with the resolutions and proclamations, we are efficient and we are determined. One of the things that I am really excited to continue to do and think we'll continue to do is really providing equity across all of our communities, but especially our upstate communities. I think we've seen where some of our communities have been forgotten as it pertains to broadband through this pandemic, making sure that we can continue to roll that out and get people the infrastructure that they need, healthcare equity, access, all of these things. So I think just more broadly fighting for our upstate communities and making sure that there's equity across the state. And more like short term this year, I have to give a plug to the local elections that we have coming up this November, and something that I am hopeful to see is more diverse and young people elected across the state in these November elections. We all know that everything is local, all politics is local, and while a lot of our news is covered by national conversations, it's the state level, but really our local towns, county legislatures, town boards that we work with closely to be able to really get a lot of the work we need to do done. So I'm excited to see how we can continue the momentum from our election last November into this year too, to make sure that we've got partners at all levels of government across the state.
And Senator Bailey, last thoughts before we wrap up this panel.
Sure. So I predict that Senator Hinchey in Brouk will join us on Tuesday night basketball so that they can witness the nomination. What's going to take place, David? Couldn't resist. But in all seriousness, I'm looking forward just to getting back in the chamber. I dare I say I miss being pulled off the floor by individuals handing you cards to come speak to you in the wings of the Senate. Dare I say that? I miss the camaraderie, and I'm looking forward to doing that. But most importantly, I'm looking forward to continuing to reform our justice system. We look at our juvenile justice system, and we look at our children being affected so negatively by so many of the things that have happened. We're looking at trauma-informed education, where we're trying to make sure that yes, we fully funded our schools, and that was an amazing accomplishment by this legislature. But we got to really deal with the effects of trauma in our children who are coming back to school and are still coming out of this unfamiliar environment. So justice reform and that and many more. But I'm most importantly, Rebecca, I'm just looking forward to being back with my colleagues and just seeing people, because it's a different environment when you finally get to see people. And I'm grateful for the opportunity just to serve.
I think everyone is looking forward to being back in the Capitol, officially open to the public again. Only a couple days after session, but who's paying attention to that? I think we're all looking forward to getting back into the Capitol, back into the hustle and bustle of things. I think that's a great place to leave it off. Thank you to all of our panelists, David Lombardo, Senator Michelle Hinchey, Senator Samra Brouk, and Senator Jamaal Bailey for coming and speaking at our event this evening. That does wrap up the panel. We're going to move into honoring our 40 rising stars, our 40 under 40. So, I would say I would say to keep all applause to the end, but I remember that we're remote on a webinar. So, but feel free to shout out anyone that you want in the comments when you see their names come up. And without further ado, we'll start with the PowerPoint. And we have Mike Avella Jr., Government Affairs Associate at Dickinson and Avella. Rebecca Balin, the former campaign manager for Invest in Our New York campaign, recently hired by Senator Andrew Gennardez. Marlon Balog, forensic accounting and fraud examination expert, at Guidehouse. Katie Birkenau, apologize, I meant to say this before, apologize for any names I mispronounce in advance. Associate attorney at Greenberg Traurig. Michael Blaustein, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Partnership for New York City. Elizabeth Brady, Director of Sexual and Interpersonal Violence Prevention at the State University of New York. Thomas Briggs, Manager at KPMG. Samra Brouk, State Senator. Thank you again for joining. Shauna Cassidy, Committee Director for the Racing, Gaming, and Wagering Committee in the State Senate. Melissa Chapman, Government Relations Specialist at Davidoff, Hutcher, and Citron. Jeremy Cooney, State Senator, Senator Brook's colleague in Rochester. Adam Davis, Managing Director of External Affairs at the New York Educators for Excellent. Kristen Duffy, Director of Government and External Affairs, Eastern New York at AT&T. Antoine Gavins, Assistant Attorney General in the Office of the State Attorney General. Nathaniel Gray, Eddie Windsor, Marsha P. Johnson, and Sylvia Rivera Empire Fellow at the State Office of Children and Family Services. Michael Grubiak, Regional Political Organizer at NYSUT. Bill Gustafsson, Capital Regional Political Coordinator at CSEA. Carrie Herring, Senior Legislative Associate at Hodes and Landy. Michelle Hinchey, State Senator. Once again, thank you for joining our panel. Francesca Huddle, Principal at Kivett. Jason Kaplan, Senior Vice President at SKDK. Adam Katz, Assistant Director of Government Programs at Teach Coalition. Kyle Ketchum, Director of Policy in the State Senate Republican Conference. Zoran Mamdani, an Assembly member. Lester Marks, Vice President of Nonprofits at Kazir. Ashton Mahdi, Vice President at Ostrov Associates. Michelle McCarthy, Communications and Alliance Manager at J Strategies. Candace Prince Modest, President at the NAACP Jamaica Branch. Sarah Ravenhall, Executive Director of the New York State Association of County Health Officials. Jamie Reyes, Director of Compliance and Enterprise Risk Management at the City University of New York. Jovan Richards, New York State Young Democrats. Jonathan Rivera, Assembly member. Brian Romero, Chief of Staff in the Office of Assembly Member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. Tricia Shimamura, Director of Government Relations at Columbia University's Office of Government and Community Affairs. Eddie A. Treveris, State Immigration Director at Forward.us. Erica Vladimir, Director of Communications for Mark Levine for Borough President.
Woo!
Brittany Vogel, Government Analyst at Hinman Straub. Teresa Wells, Public Relations Strategist at Corning Place Communications.
Yeah.
Iris White, Chief of Staff at Bolton St. John's. Juwanza James Williams, Organizing Director at Vocal NY. And those are our 40 under 40 rising stars in Albany this year. Thank you again to all of our panelists and everyone who attended our event this evening. Before I let you go, I just want to let you know about some of our upcoming events that you can sign up for online. On Thursday, July 22nd at 1 p.m., we're having our Protecting New York Summit. You can register online on our website. The link is also in the chat. On Wednesday, July 28th at 5, we're celebrating our Bronx Power 100 list. Jamaal Bailey, shout out. Again, you can register online. And on Tuesday, August 17th at 1 p.m., we're holding our annual Education New York Summit. Again, registration is free. You can sign up online. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. I hope that everyone had a good time listening to the panel tonight. And again, congratulations to all our honorees. Hope everyone has a good night.
Nice job hosting, Rebecca.